資源効率に優れた IT と題しまして、マーク・モンローさん、グリーングリッドエグゼクティブディレクターのマーク・モンローさんより講演いただきます。よろしくお願いします。
I imagine I'll be the only speaker with the microphone this high up on the podium. But thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm very pleased to be a part of the 4th annual forum in Japan for the Green Grid. We've been experiencing a great year from the whole global organization, and I'm very happy to see all of you here and interested in this in the presentations. Those of you that know me know that I will have put way too many slides into my presentation, so that I hope that I'll be able to speak slowly enough for those of you listening on the translation to be able to follow along. The Green Grid's mission is to be the global authority on resource-efficient information systems and data centers. And by resources, we mean energy, carbon, water, even electronic waste is something that we've started to consider, and the organization of more than 160 companies has been together for about 6 years now as a global organization, and almost 4 years here in Japan, and remains with that mission, that we're focused on efficiency for a number of reasons. The reasons primarily are that we see no end in sight for the demand for computing. This slide has some facts and figures from around the internet. We look at 2.39 billion people accessing the internet today. And that's, as I have to update this slide every month because there is such a large number of people coming onto the internet. Estimates are that we may see another 1.5 billion people accessing the internet on a regular basis within 10 years. The growth in smartphones, everyone's smartphones, we're shipping more than 600 million smartphones per year. Each one of those is a little computer. I like to say that Siri doesn't live in your smartphone, in your iPhone. Siri lives in a data center. When you talk to your smartphone, it goes to a data center and then replies back to you with the voice recognition software. 41 million Skype users. Skype is the largest international phone company in the world today. And they had a record day a few months ago where they had 41 million simultaneous conversations going on. That's like everyone in the Tokyo metro area calling on Skype at the same time, plus another 8 million people or so. So we see tremendous growth, and we don't see any end in sight for that. And therefore, we don't want the power consumption curve to go at the same slope as the compute consumption curve does, which is why the Green Grid is around. There are also global trends that are driving us towards more efficient, resource-efficient IT. The developing economies, countries like China, Brazil, Russia, South Africa, are driving a lot of that additional 1.5 billion people that we see gathering the internet. The growth of these economies is going to continue to drive consumption of computing resources, and we need to make those resources as efficient as possible for both economic and environmental reasons. A year ago at the Green Grids Forum in the United States, we had 2 economists as keynote speakers, Mr. Robert Atkinson and Mr. Skip Leitner. Both talked about the fact that regulators, legislators are looking at the ICT industry and the amount of energy consumed and saying, that's a target. We need to reduce the amount of energy in the ICT industry, regardless of the benefits that the ICT industry is providing to society as a whole. And what we found was that these 2 experts, these 2 economists, were correct. Over the last 2 years, more than 100 pieces of information of legislation or regulation regarding ICT industry have been introduced around the world. And we're seeing that these are increasingly focused on energy efficiency, resource efficiency, the water that we use, the power that we draw off the grids, and the load that large data centers provide onto the electrical system. So we need to be careful if we want to stay ahead of the regulators. This is another reason that the Green Grid exists. Our relationships with governments are very important to our member companies. You've seen this 5-year timeline. It's a little hard to read up here on the screen. There is a couple of dates that are important. The Green Grid was formed back in 2007, January of 2007. The first meeting of the Japan work group happened in May of 2008. And so we were very happy to see our first regional expansion there. We've expanded into the European community in the UK, and just recently had a meeting in China, our second meeting in China. I'll talk more about that in a few more slides. But you can see that we've had some significant accomplishments both in Japan and around the world over that 6-year period of a 5-year period of the Green Grid being in existence. And what this has led to is new ways to participate. The board of directors recently looked at the participation inside the Green Grid and inside the industry and decided to make participation easier to do inside the Green Grid. They introduced the concept of individual membership. So now for $400 US, individuals can join the Green Grid and participate just like the big companies do. There's also general members, or the lower level, the lower cost membership options inside the Green Grid. And these are now available to participate in a broader spectrum of activities inside the Green Grid. They can participate on any of the task forces that develop the white papers and the technical deliverables and the marketing groups that are in there. So we were hoping to accelerate participation in the activities that we do as part of the Green Grid. And along those lines, I have a very exciting announcement to make. Some of you may be familiar with another efficiency organization called the Climate Savers Computing Initiative. I'm announcing today for the first time here in Tokyo that the Green Grid and Climate Savers Computing Initiative are now going to be joined together. These two organizations both have been focused on efficiency, but in slightly different areas, and I'll show a slide in a minute that will tell where the areas have been overlapping and where they are complementary. But we're very happy to be able to say that the Climate Savers, the CSCI programs, will be combining with the Green Grid programs, and the CSCI members will become members of the Green Grid organization. Green Grid's mission will remain the same. The mission that I put up there a minute ago will stay the same, to be the global authority on resource-efficient information systems and data centers. All the members will be brought together, and the two boards of directors will be brought together. In fact, the first joint meeting of the board of directors, where all the Climate Savers board members and all the Green Grid board members will be together, is next week in the United States. To give you an idea of the differences and similarities between the Climate Savers organization and the Green Grid, if we think about the whole spectrum of IT information systems energy consumption, it starts up in the corner with consumption in turning raw fuel into electricity, and this represents the efficiency in the United States. Our coal-fired power plants are about 35% efficient. They take 100 units of energy in, produce 35 units of energy, and then send that down to the data centers. And traditionally, the Green Grid has focused on data centers and volume servers, so that the kind of circle that looks like this. Climate Savers traditionally has focused on volume servers and desktops and laptops and the efficiency of power supplies. They more recently have started to focus on networking efficiency and power management. And so you can see some of the areas that are covered by the different organizations, and some of the areas where we overlap. Not too many areas where we overlap, which was good. That means our two organizations very complementary. In addition, both organizations served vendors of IT and facilities equipment and consumers of that, end users. And both organizations had roles for individuals to participate as well. The Green Grid's more recently, the Climate Savers has had individual participants for quite a while. So what we see is that the two organizations are structured fairly similarly. It's very easy for the two organizations to come together. Our board of directors and technical and marketing committees will merge. and that the final organization will look something like this, where we have a blend of Climate Savers and Green Grid board of directors, marketing organizations, technical committees, and regional organizations. Because if you noticed on the last slide, there is also a Climate Savers group that has been active in Japan. I'm also introducing at this time a new program inside of the Green Grid, which is called the Green Grid Sustainable Computing Initiative, or the TGGSCI. It's a lot of letters. This actually takes over a program that Climate Savers Computing had called their Affiliates Program. And the Affiliates Program was a no-cost way of aligning organizations and individuals with the Climate Savers objectives of reducing carbon, encouraging the use of power management software, and having efficient IT equipment be purchased. So we've added a program to the Green Grid that now is called the Sustainable Computing Initiative. Participants do the same things that they would if they were part of the Climate Savers. We're going to ask the Climate Savers people to, the affiliates, to recommit to the goals of the program. And it's very easy to sign up. There's no fee. You go to the web page that is not quite active. It should be active today now that we are making the announcement. Down here in the bottom, this is available off of the Green Grid website. And it's a very simple sign-up procedure. I should say that any members of the Green Grid, current members of the Green Grid, can go in and make this kind of a pledge, this commitment to the principles of the Sustainable Computing Initiative, but it's not necessary to do that. We're encouraging all the folks that were part of the Climate Savers affiliates programs to be able to participate this way. And so I'd like to just introduce a member of the Climate Savers organization, Mr. Yoshio Murata, to come and say a word or two about the joining of the Green Grid and the Climate Savers organizations. Murata-san. Thank you.
皆さん、ただいまご紹介に預かりましたクライメートセーバーズコンピューティングイニシアチブ日本地域委員会インテルから参加しております村田義雄と申します。本日はこのような中お時間をいただきありがとうございます。ただいまモンローさんから紹介させていただきましたようにクライメートセーバーズコンピューティングイニシアチブとグリーングリッドこの一体化はですね今まではその別々といいますか強調はしておりましたが各々違った分野にフォーカスをして行っていた活動を今後一体化をして推し進めていくこの一体化というのはこの2つのオーガニゼーションが一体化するということはもちろんですがお客様ですとか IT ベンダーこういう方々にとりましても今までデータセンターだけクライアントだけ、こういうフォーカスがですねより一つにまとまってエンドユーザー様そして政府こういうようなところの働きかけもですねより強いものになっていくというふうに考えております。今後この両者が一体化した活動の幅の広さそしてインパクトの大きさこちらに大きく私も期待しております。皆さんもぜひこちらの一体化されたオーガニゼーションでご協力いただけますようよろしくお願いいたします。
Again, we're very excited to be making this announcement first here at the Japan Forum for the Green Grid. You'll see press releases come out now around the world that announce that the Climate Savers Computing Initiative and the Green Grid are now one organization. Now I'd like to provide a few highlights from the US Forum. Those of you that were not able to attend, we had some wonderful sessions there that I'll bring in some highlights of this so that we can continue some of the discussion and the expansion of the knowledge that was provided at the forum in San Jose in March of 2012. One of the things that we did is we had a business and a technology focus separate from each other. And part of the business focus that we did were case studies from eBay. eBay has a brand new data center that they built in the desert southwest of the United States, a very hot, dry climate. And they used so many concepts of the Green Grid that we decided to write a case study about them. And it's been a great success. We also had a panel discussion about the business value of PUE, not just the technical value of it, but what business value are companies seeing? And I'll show you a little bit of the results of that session as well. In the eBay case study, we worked very closely with eBay's engineers and operations folks to make sure that we understood how the systems were designed in their Phoenix data center. We documented a lot of the things that were done that were unique. One of the unique things that eBay did, and the reason that was important that the Green Grid write the case study, was they used PUE as a design driver. They set the performance of the data center that they wanted right at the beginning, and then allowed the companies that did the design to do any number of things to achieve that efficiency that they were driving. eBay also followed many of the principles of the data center maturity model, DCMM, and I'll talk about DCMM in a little while. But they took very advanced techniques that have been brought together by many of the members of the Green Grid and put together into the maturity model, and we saw examples of how they used those throughout the case study. One of the things that they did very close to the forum, Mr. Dean Nelson, who is the Vice President of Data Center Construction at eBay, was preparing his slides, and he just found out about the DCMM assessment tool. This is an online tool that anyone can use now to look at their data center in comparison to the best practices that are written down in the data center maturity model, and to develop this graphic, the green and yellow chart that is specific to your data center. And I'll encourage all of you to go to the Green Grid website, look for the data center maturity model, the assessment tool, and to enter how does your data center stack up against the best practices that are listed in there. I tell this story because it's funny. Mr. Nelson is a good friend of mine from when I was at Sun Microsystems and does things at the last minute. We were waiting for his slides. I was eating breakfast with him before he presented his slides, and he said, "An assessment tool? How do I do that?" And he sat down and he started working on it, and in 20 minutes he produced this graphic and included it in his presentation. So I don't want you to think the assessment tool takes too long. It can take 20 minutes at the outside. We say usually it takes about 2 hours to complete a complete assessment. What eBay found as they went through the data center maturity model and using PUE as a design tool was that they were able to achieve tremendous efficiency out of their data center. The numbers that they measured, and they measured these very carefully to make sure that they were accurate, they were able to get a best case PUE for the entire data center of 1.26 and an average PUE of 1.35. These are averaged over a short period, over about a week, but they did this in the springtime in the US. So conditions were very good. They're going to be continuing to monitor the PUE and report it publicly, maybe as an update to this case study, so that we can continue to see how they perform through the hot summer in Phoenix. Another of the outstanding results that they did was they have containerized data centers up on the roof of the data centers from 2 different vendors. And one of their vendors was they were able to measure a partial PUE, which only accounts for the electricity that goes into the data center. But this container only uses electricity that's come from their high voltage feed that's on the roof and city water. So there's no air conditioning for this system at all. It all uses 100% free cooling. And they were able to show a partial PUE of 1.018. So only 2% overhead for running the computers in this data center container up on the roof of a building inside in the southwest of the United States in the middle of the desert, a hot, dry climate. So very good results and tremendous results. And what they found was these containers drive the overall PUE of the data center down. The partial PUEs of these are so low, and they represent so much of the compute load of the data center that the overall data center is low as well. In the business value of PUE sessions, we had representatives from Bank of New York Mellon, that's BNY Mellon. We had State Street, which is another financial organization in the United States, and FedEx, who is the logistics company, the shipping company, all talk about why PUE was important to them. Why did they publish it in their annual reports? Why do they make public announcements of the PUE of their data center? And one of the results that came out most strongly, this is a page, a chart from the annual report of Bank of New York Mellon. This number down here, a little hard to read, but it says almost $11 million in savings as a result of tracking and improving PUE in their data center portfolio. So they have tangible business results that they show that BUE really does have a business value. And we want to make sure that people understand it's not just a technical measurement. On the technology side, though, we did make some upgrades to some old projects that we had. In 2009, the Green Grid introduced free cooling maps. And at the 2012 forum, we introduced an update to those free cooling maps. Now, Mr. Don Beatty will talk about the widened ASHRAE standard, so I'm not going to spend much time on it. But you may recognize this, those of you that have seen a psych chart before, as the ASHRAE standard. And in 2009, we developed free cooling maps based on this small red area inside the graph, where most people operate their data centers in the ASHRAE recommended range. That allowed us to calculate if the weather conditions were correct and the air was both cooler, less than this line, and drier, less than this line, then you could run your data center on outside air as long as there weren't overall pollutants and things like that. It was possible that you could run your outside air as your data center cooling mechanism. That led us to the production of this map of Japan. And as you can see in Tokyo, it shows between 5,500 and 6,000 hours per year available free cooling hours. So that says the outside conditions are sufficient that you could run in the ASHRAE recommended range to be able to use just outside air for your cooling. No mechanical cooling, no air conditioning required at all. With the change in the ASHRAE standards in May of 2011, the expansion of those areas that says sometimes you can run your data center at a hotter temperature and a more moist temperature with more moisture in the air, what that allowed you to do is run more hours per year. That was one of the objectives of the ASHRAE expansion. And what that did is it let us recalculate the number of hours. And what happens is our map changes to this. And what this shows is now virtually the entire island nation is available 100% free cooling hours. If you allow your data center to run a little bit hotter, a little bit more humid than the ASHRAE recommended range for a few hours. So for example, today, it's very hot outside. We wouldn't be able to run for the hours maybe in the middle of the day. We probably could actually. It's only 30 degrees outside. It's not 40 degrees. And so we could still run, the computers would run pretty hot, and then as nighttime came along, they would cool back down, and we'd be able to run for those few hours of time in that expanded range. So tremendous expansion in the amount of hours worldwide that we see as a result of the widening of those ASHRAE standards. If you would like to experiment with your data center conditions, you say, I can't run at 30 degrees C or 35 degrees C, but I can run at 27 degrees with a little bit more humidity. You may have seen before the Green Grid's web-based tool. This is the Japan version that allows you to go in and experiment with the operating conditions. You put operating conditions into the tool, the amount of IT load and what your PUE is for your data center. And your electrical costs can go down here, or you can use the standards that we've put in. And the tool will calculate the number of hours that you could run under those conditions in the outside air, and the estimated amount of savings that you would have, electrical savings that you would have. And it's all based on locations in Japan. You can do this in locations in North America and locations in Europe as well. This tool, by the way, is the same as the 2009 tool. But it turns out we built it so flexible that now we can use the expanded ASHRAE standards. I want to just quickly talk about the expansion that we've had into China. This is a list of the companies that attended the meeting just about 3 weeks ago in China, in Beijing. This was actually our second meeting in China. You can see that there were a number of companies that are existing members of the Green Grid, and some number of companies that are new prospective members of the Green Grid. I believe there were 18 existing members and 9 new prospective members, including several government agencies in China, which you know is very important for the implementation and success. This is some pictures of the meeting. We had 67 people come. They were very excited about the possibility of the Green Grid in China. We actually had someone from the Ministry of Information Technology come and speak. You can see that I got these pictures from Tom Misaki. Those of you will recognize him. I think he's in every picture. but it was his camera, so he's allowed to be in every picture. Thank you, Tom, for the pictures. I do appreciate them. In terms of the meeting, we had very positive responses. We've had a number of people step forward as potential leaders for technical committees and marketing committees. They hope that we can get additional media coverage and more excitement around this and have many more new companies join in China in the future. And part of the reason, again, that this is important is there's tremendous demand in China, and they need to be able to have that efficiently. This is a slide that was provided during that session by one of the government agencies. CCSA is the China Communications Standards Association. And you can see their estimate that they expect to have the amount of data processing that they do increase 7 to 10 times in the next 5 years. If you look into this slide, it says they have almost 1 million square feet or 1 million square meters of capacity today, and that in 5 years they expect that they'll need room for 350,000 more racks. That's another 700,000 to 800,000 square meters of data center space. So they have very large needs in China, and they'll be building this over the next 5 to 10 years. And so we want to make sure they want it to be as efficient as it can be, and we want to help them do that within the Green Grid. In terms of next steps, we have put a list of potential leaders in front of the board of directors. I expect that the board will select those leaders and help those leaders to be trained so that they can understand what's going on. We'll get the organization of the next few meetings and start to recruit local companies in China. So we'll be telling you more about that as it develops. I'm going to finish real quickly with a request that you look at the data center maturity model if you haven't looked at it lately, and at the assessment tool, the new online assessment tool. So this is the overall view of the Green Grid data center maturity model. Down the vertical axis are 8 categories, 4 in facilities, 4 in IT. Across this are best practices at different levels of maturity. The best practice today is level 2. The best practice 5 years from now is level 5. And what the team did is they built this and what they call the equalizer. The DCMM equalizer is this graphic that shows you now in each area of power, and this would be power distribution efficiency, cooling, mechanical cooling usage, and free cooling usage, and PUE overall, the compute, how much virtualization is in the PUE that you use. The equalizer helps you visually see where you are against your goals. The goals are the yellow squares, and the achievements are the green squares. So you can very quickly see where you are in different areas and where you would need to make investments in the future. In addition, we've built this assessment tool. It's an online tool now where you can go in and the questions for all of the 246 areas of assessment are in the tool. You can list them as either I have achieved them or it's a target. The tool will quickly put out a PDF file or an Excel spreadsheet, and will also store information so that you can measure this over time. And it stores information of other data center assessments that were done so you can compare your assessment to other data center assessments. The more data center assessments we get put into the tool, the more valuable that information becomes, the more streamlining you can do. You can actually benchmark against other data centers in Japan, or other data centers in the financial industry, or other data centers that are tier 3 of reliability, and see what targets people have versus the ones that you have set for yourself. So that's the end of my slides. I want to thank you again for having me here, and I look forward to the rest of the forum being very productive. Thank you very much.
マークさん、どうもありがとうございました。今一度マークさんに温かい拍手の方をお願いします。